The demons of Davos are gathering this week for the World Economic Forum, but they're quickly realizing that the world has other plans for them. We're going to see how Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping are actively remaking the world order in such a way as to crush any hopes the WEF has to be a major player on the globe. And make sure to stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal the person who's actually admitting this the most, and that's none other than Klaus Schwab himself. You're not going to want to miss this. Every year, presidents, prime ministers, and CEOs all arrive in their private jets and are sequestered together in the remote mountain village of Davos, Switzerland, for the annual meeting of the WEF, or the World Economic Forum. It's a carefully guarded meeting replete with roadblocks and security personnel who cordon off and control the one and only entry into this village sequestered in the mountains of Switzerland. And it's, for all practical purposes, it's the Olympics of the elite, as it were, the annual gathering of the world's 1,000 leading companies who, quote, seek to shape a better future. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, of course, be there doing what he does best, which is siphoning money from Western powers. He'll be securing so-called reconstruction loans from BlackRock while there, which no one believes will ever be paid back, but that's not the point. Ukraine has been a massive cash cow for the globalist elite for decades, and the months since the Russian invasion has only served to underscore that. Elon Musk, for his part, he was invited to the latest gathering, but he basically told them to stick it. Musk turned down the invitation in no uncertain terms. He, in fact, used, shall we say, some very colorful language, dismissing the gathering as a total and complete waste of time. However, there have been a number of reports coming out of late recognizing that this is no ordinary meeting. This is not just another year, just another gathering in the WEF's ongoing attempt at recasting world political and the world's politics and economics in their own image. Something is happening that's changing the world, and indeed the WEF, in ways that the Davos crowd is increasingly realizing they're powerless to stop. The New York Times just ran a fascinating headline: Davos confronts a new world order. And the byline says, the COVID-19 pandemic, the invasion of Ukraine, trends toward autocracy, and economic inequalities are challenging the relevance of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, that last phrase is key there. All of these things are challenging the relevance of the WEF. According to the New York Times, it is losing its relevance. In other words, the WEF is losing its influence, its power to direct and dictate political and economic life around the world. Here's a couple of highlights from the article. Quote, the post-Cold War era, dominated by the idea that Western liberal democracy and free market capitalism held all the answers, is over. This was the very ethos of Davos. It must now pivot to the new reality provoked by COVID, the war in Ukraine, and aggressive Russian and Chinese autocracies. If the old is gone, the new order is not yet born. Power is shifting away from the United States as China's military and economic heft grows. But the shape of an alternative international system is unclear. And that's where the New York Times places its emphasis in the article, that Davos needs to help steer the emergence of this new world order. Unfortunately for them, I don't think it's going to be able to do anything like that. Now, just unpacking this a bit for you, we have to remember that after the Soviet Union collapsed officially in December of 1991, the Cold War era, the standoff between the two major world powers, the United States and Soviet Union, came to an end. And prior to that, you had what's called, in geopolitical terms, a multipolar world. That was a world where you had, in this case, three major world powers: the United States, the Soviet Union, and Nazi Germany. The United States and Russia teamed up to knock out Nazi Germany, and then we entered into a bipolar world where there were only two major world powers. That world collapsed in 1991, and that left the United States as the sole world power on the planet. And that ushered in what's called the liberal international order. And that's because the most powerful state in the world was a liberal democratic state. And we purposely and deliberately sought to make the world in our own image. We wanted all nations to become liberal democracies. We wanted them embracing liberal values. We wanted them being part of the same institutions like the WTO and the IMF. And all have the same goals. And that's where WEF came in. The WEF provided an integrative vision for the world's elites, its billionaires and bureaucrats, to orchestrate a unified political and economic agenda that is then imposed on the masses. And as long as we lived in a unipolar world, there seemed very little anyone could do to stop this. But then something happened. Something happened that is now undermining the whole of the WEF, and ironically, in the end, it's the WEF's own fault. You're not going to want to miss this. But first, gang, click on that link below and protect yourself and your loved ones from this corrupt cartel by protecting your assets with the timeless value of gold and silver. As you know, patriots all over the centuries have always relied on gold and silver to protect their assets during economic storms, and that's exactly where the amazing patriots over at Goldco come in. If you have $50,000 or more in your IRA, 401k, or savings account, you need to protect those assets from bumbling Biden's insanity with the timeless value of gold and silver. Click on that link below and talk to our good friends over at Goldco. They're patriots just like us. They want you to succeed so much, they're offering up to $10,000 in free silver if you open up an account with them. But that is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com. China is fast rising into a major world power, and ironically, the dolts at Davos only have themselves to blame. It was believed that by getting China, which was until just a few decades ago an incredibly poor country, by getting them hooked on capitalism, making them rich, in the process, they would reform their ways and become a liberal democratic ally of the United States and Western nations. Well, they certainly got rich, and now they're in the process of building a military second to none in size and scope. And as for the CCP, it's more powerful than it's ever been. At the same time, Russia has actively decoupled itself from the West, creating its own parallel world, what scholars are increasingly calling a civilization state. Indeed, both Russia and China are actively engaged at reawakening their ancient imperial civilizational spheres together in such a way that is in turn reawakening a multipolar world. The unipolar world headed by the U.S., the very world that became the essence of Davos, is officially dead. A new multipolar world is rising. And none other than Klaus Schwab, the head of the WEF, is admitting this. Back in 2017, shortly after Trump was elected president and the Brexit referendum passed to emancipate Britain from the EU, Klaus Schwab admitted that the globalist world order, the liberal international order that the WEF helped orchestrate and manage, was completely collapsing. Now, he has since been warning his fellow globalists that they're going to have to recast or reimagine globalization in such a way that it'll be more palatable for far more nationalist, populist, and civilizationalist sentiments in this new world. But in the end, it's being increasingly admitted, even by our liberal elite, that the WEF isn't calling the shots anymore. A new world order is rising, and it's one that promises to bring the days of the demons in Davos to a most definite end. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and you'll definitely want to check out my latest video on it's over for Biden. It's looking increasingly like there will be no second term. You're not going to want to miss this, so make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.